二人で歩く帰り道、ふと見上げた大きな空、小さな僕らが出会えたこと、それだけで素敵なことだよね。何気ない君との時間も当たり前のような明日もかけがえないものなんだって、君がそう教えてくれたんだ。どんな明日も君がいれば僕はきっと進んでゆける。君とずっとずっと歩いてゆこう。二人でいる未来へ前を向く勇気をくれるよ。いつも君の笑顔がどんな日もきっと僕らなら大丈夫って、一緒に笑えるといいな。
Minions have spawned.
This world needs hope.
こんな僕でも強くなれるよ。ただ君がそばにいるだけで、だから君がくじけそうな時は
Protect our
僕
land.
がそばにいたいんだ。たとえ他の誰が笑っても僕は強く信じてるから、今もずっとずっと願っているよ。二人でいる未来を前を向いて歩いてゆくよ。一人きりじゃないから、いつの日か君とほら運命が温めて、二人で笑いながら一緒に歩けるといいな。
Demacia marches as one. I bring justice.
せて牙を立てる気がつかぬ間に毒が回る心だけ気づいて寂しがる痺れるような苦しみの中で一人の無力に沈んだんだ誰に何と言ったってもう戻れないんだって面倒だなんて手放したことさたとえ何度泣いたって動きはしないんだって心に日々が走る
We are the vanguard.
壊れぬように壊さぬように未熟な手で守ってたのに
Deeds take
些細な感情が力んじゃったりして握りつぶしていたんだろう膝を抱いて泣いたって変わりはしないんだって静かな部屋に響く OS さえも夜が飲み込んだって月が照らしたって消えない消えない消えない事実だけ見て言えない言えない隠していた声を僕はもどくが襲う
mới xảy ra là đúng không bạn?
Keep faith in yourself. This world needs hope.
Dài đi.
簡単言葉を吐いたあんな思い出に泣いたのは今日で終わりにしないかワンツーの合図を待って You and me 手を取り合ったのは僕の勇気あるコールドフェイス立ち止まんないでいいんだからねそらそらしいなこの人生できないだなんて言わないでね言わないでね今更なんて言わないでね
Hello này dòng á.
僕ら今ささわになって回り始めるだんだん嫌になってでも好きになるねんねわかんないや自分会議もどんどん急に寄ってでも離れてくバンバン取り寄って踊り始める散々嫌になってでも好きになるねんねわかんないやこの先もずっと僕の心をシェイクシェイクイェイ大正解なんてないのさじゃあ一体どこに向かえば物語は終わりますかワンツーの合図を待って You and me 手が触れ合ったのは僕の勇気あるコールドフェイスかしこまったって意味ないんだって恥ずかしがって右バイバイですこの先ずっとよろしくねよろしくね君と今さっさ交わって目をそらし合うだんだん嫌になってでも好きになるねってわかんないや自分会議もどんどん様になって崩れ落ちてくパンパンフレーム前に
tiền mà.
Forge onward.
今さらなんて言わないでね僕ら今さら輪になって回り始めるだんだん嫌になってでも好きになるねんねわかんないや自分会議もどんどん中に乗ってでも離れてくバッバットに乗って踊り始める散々嫌になってでも好きになるねんねわかんないやこの先もずっと僕のことを笑わせて
Ông
Your turret has been destroyed.
Never forget why. In the king's name.
An enemy has been slain.
à, họ là nó bị outscale rồi.
What is method writing?
Oh, you're starting off with a hard question. Well, I'm an actor. Method acting is a big school of acting that Marlon Brando and people like that studied under, Marilyn Monroe and so forth. And I studied method acting, and it stresses an authentic response to what your work is. You're not acting with gestures. You're being true. You're being
Keep faith in
natural.
yourself.
And I was teaching writing, in which I thought
An enemy
I
has
wanted
been
writers
slain.
not to worry about the technique or the style to begin with, but to get in touch with their center, their true
This
voice.
world needs hope.
So I called it method writing, like method acting,
Killing
method writing.
spree.
And that was the basic idea. Method writing is a much more complicated methodology of learning to write from your deep truth. And there are a lot of other techniques I teach that are about cinematic images. So in a sense, you're making a movie in the reader's head. So there's other things you have to know how to do. But the core of it, just like with acting, is to be centered and to be true. So method writing is references method acting.
How easy is that for someone? Do we think that we're being true, and in actuality, we're actually putting on airs, and the audience can see that, and they can see it in our writing?
Well,
Stand
if
ready.
it was easy to do that, there would be no, everybody would be acting. It's not easy to do that. That's why people take acting classes. I always ask people, what do you learn? What's the first thing you learn to do in an acting class? And the answer is how not to act, how not to look like you're acting. Because if you've ever been to a play, there's always some guy that's overacting, and you sense it right away. And as soon as you see the person acting, you're pulled back from the reality of the play. Now, of course, the play's not real. You know it's a play. But while you're watching it, you want to have the feeling that
An
it's
enemy has
real.
been slain.
Matter of fact, they, instead of saying you believe it, the theater expression is you suspend your disbelief. Because you know it's not Hamlet. You know these are actors. But what you want to create is the feeling of verisimilitude, truth, so that the people in the audience for that hour and a half, 2 hours, can suspend their disbelief and fall into it. Well, if you have an actor overacting, you know right away that they're an actor. You can't get into it. That's why people study acting, to learn how not to act, to learn how to be natural. Because
Has been slain.
it's very easy to be natural in your home when you're sitting there smoking a cigar and drinking a beer. But let's say you be natural on a stage with 500 people out there
Shut
and,
down.
lights hitting you from above. Or in a movie where there's a camera looking right at your eye, and there's the guy with the sound boom, and 20 people around you. Let's see you relax and be real in that situation, and that takes training. Now, when you get to writing, people don't realize when they're not writing authentically, because they learn to sound like writers. They learn to be poetic, they learn to be eloquent, and they develop a lot of bad habits in the attempt to look like they're writers, quote unquote. So it's very hard to get people to write in an authentic way. It's hard to get people to act in an authentic way, but harder to get them to write in an authentic way, because they really don't believe that they are not writing in a natural voice. They have all this fancy junk that they write, but they think I'm a writer. Look at me, Mom. But very hard to do that. To get to your natural, what I call the deep voice, that takes focus and it takes practice and training, just like an athlete. An athlete's got to be able to perform with a lot of pressure and act like there's no pressure.
There wasn't.
You can't choke. So it's the same with writing.
An enemy has
You're
been
doing
slain.
something that's unnatural. You're right. If I were writing a shopping list, I wouldn't be uptight. But all of a sudden, I'm writing my great American novel, my great poem, and I'm suddenly going to be, I'm a poet, blah blah blah. I'm a writer, blah blah blah. And you start to push. So it's very hard to let go of that and just be real and be authentic. And it takes training.
Is it hard to write a good story?
Is it hard to write a good story? No, it's not hard to write a good story. It's hard to write a great story. And the only way you're going to write a great story is to be willing to write a shitty story. When you try to write a good story, you're in big trouble. Just like with acting. When you try to
Victory
be
awaits.
acting, you're in trouble. So again, you've got to be calm, you've got to be simple, and if you write truly, sometimes you might write a bad story. Sometimes you might write a crappy story. But if you're always trying to write a good story, you'll never write a great story. But if you're willing to fail and write a bad story or a crappy story, once in a while you get lucky, and then you get a great story. So for me, it's like going to the races.
Shape the future.
I'd rather pick a winner that's a long shot and makes a lot of money than win a lot of little races that pay only $2. So yeah, it's easy to write a good story. It's hard to write a great story.
I will not
You mentioned willingness to fail.
never forget.
With some
why
of your
we
students
fight.
or others that you've seen, is there something in them that they're too rigid and they can't let go of the idea of being perfect and doing everything great or excellent at first pass?
Yeah, I could just quote what you just said. But you see, you've got to understand that, as I said, it's very easy to be sitting home in your living room having a beer and a cigar and be natural. But let's say you be natural in front of an audience of 500 people or in front of the lens of a camera, like in a movie, and that lens is right up against your face. Man, you freak out. You get nervous. You push. You overdo it. So when you're writing, it's a little hard to relax and just be honest, be true, and get to your deep voice. I have techniques in writing for how to get to the deep voice. I have a thing called the transformation line, which is a certain kind of statement that you, as I say, you massage it. It means you take it deeper and you go deeper and deeper into it. But when you're doing that, you can't be thinking of your plot or your story. And again, everybody, when they started to write, they first think of the story. They think of what they're going to write about. Death. If you know what you're going to write about before you write about it, you're in trouble. But most people don't want to write about what they don't know they're going to write about, because then it might not be good. And no one wants to take that chance. So they start out with, what can I write about? Oh, I know. I'll write about that time my grandfather slipped and fell off the roof into the fish pond. Yeah, that'll make a good story. And then they start to write what they think is a good story. Instead of just approaching the writing from nothing, a very Zen kind of an idea, you begin with nothing and see where it wants to go. Most people don't want to risk that, because if you do that, you might write something bad, and people don't want to fail. But if you're willing to fail, then sometimes you strike it rich.
Can those who are worried so much about failure do exercises to lessen that? To make themselves feel either more at home on the stage or at home bearing their words to people that might criticize them?
Well, I do use the term exercises. In Stanislavski, who did method acting, he's got the word concepts. And
Killing spree.
I also was in Second City and did improvisational theater and even taught classes in it. They use something called theater games. So if anyone ever watches that TV show, what's the name of it? Whose Line Is It Anyway? They always have a little game they have to play. So you have these points of focus, an exercise, a theater game, a concept, and you learn these concepts. And if you focus on the concept, then you're not focused on the story. So you can actually practice that. But when you say an exercise, to me, every time you write, you're doing an exercise. When I'm in rehearsal for a play, and then opening night comes, I don't suddenly go, oh, it's opening night, I can act. What you've been rehearsing is not acting. In the whole 6 weeks or 2 weeks of your rehearsal, you're rehearsing to be true. So when opening night comes, you don't suddenly start acting. You are continuing to do that work. So to me, the exercise is what you do when you are writing. And if you fail, now we go into a different issue, which is an issue for a lot of people who are successful in life with anything. People who are successful in life with anything, they interpret failure differently than people who tend to be unsuccessful. When people tend to be unsuccessful, they interpret failure as evidence that they're not good at that. So then they try something else. Successful people, whether you're a writer or an insurance salesman or a banker or whatever, banker, applies to everything. When you have learning how to juggle, okay? I'm supposed to drop the ball 100 times. I don't drop the ball once and twice and then I think, well, I can't juggle. I go, yeah, that's what happens when you learn how to do something. You fail. So a successful person, they interpret failure as what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to fail. And then you keep doing it, and you fail some more,
An
and
enemy
you
has
fail
been
more.
slain.
Or as Samuel Beckett you're supposed to fail. Doing it, fail,
Rampage.
try again, fail again, try again, fail better. In other words, I'm supposed to fail. And when I fail, it means I'm on the road toward learning how to juggle successfully. So that's the real difference. And the way to prevent failure is to always aim for good. Because ultimately, everybody can be good. But to be great, means you have to risk failing. And unless you're willing to risk failing,
Right.
you won't be great. So when people fail at something, they go,
I'm coming.
oh, I guess I'm not good at that. But successful people interpret failure as, yeah, I'm supposed to fail. And I'll keep failing. And eventually I'll get better and I'll learn how to juggle and I'll learn how to do it. So that's the key. It's not about failing, it's how you interpret failure. That's the big difference. Hey, you're more nervous than I am.
What
Oh
the
yeah,
heck?
no, I get very nervous, but I'm hoping to. I like it.
Sao nó mới rời vô không trung
Just
rồi.
aim for good.
Well, see, that's another thing. My acting teacher used to always say, when you're nervous before a performance, don't try to get rid of the nervousness. Bring it with you into the scene. Because it's an authentic emotion. And as he put it, never deny an authentic emotion on stage or in front of a camera. Never deny it. Never try to cover it up. So if in the middle of a scene you start laughing, laugh. If in the middle of a scene you're nervous, let that nervousness be there. When I do a poetry reading, I am always, ask my wife, she'll tell you, my palms get sweaty and I'm a wreck. And I want to be, I know that's good. I go, okay, good. It means I'm alive, because if I was dead, I wouldn't be nervous. But if you're alive, you're afraid of failure. And when you're afraid of making a fool of yourself in front of 20 or 100 people, you get nervous. Well, that's good. I should be nervous. And what I try to do is not to dissipate it.
In the
The
king's
nervousness is really my friend because it means I am connected to this moment when I get up and I open, my book of poetry and I go, okay, my first poem is going to be, blah, blah, blah. If I'm confident, I'm going to be boring. Confidence is really pretty boring. There's nothing worse than seeing somebody think they know everything. It's boring when you're performing, when you're acting, when you're reading. So if you are nervous, hold on to it. It's your friend. Let it be. And when you start to read whatever that poem is or story, if the poem makes you're nervous, it's because there's something at stake. You might be writing about
An enemy has been slain.
the time your father came home drunk and you
An enemy has
you
been slain.
tried to stop him from leaving and you pushed him down and he fell and here you are 12 years old and you feel like you just knocked your dad out. Or maybe you're writing a poem about when you were in Italy and you were 19 and you got a phone call from the father of the boy you were traveling with. And he tells you, son, you have to come home. You're the man in the family now.
Keep
And
faith
you don't
in
even want to
yourself.
admit that you know what that means. So you say, what? I don't understand. Of course you understand. He's telling you your father died. But you know what? I don't understand. He said, son, you're the man in the family now.
We are the
Well,
vanguard.
that's a moment that I really relive and remember. It was like my whole world caved in. I was in Lake Como in Italy, and it just changed my life. It just, I never
This
thought that would
world
happen.
needs hope.
My father was like the most important man in my life. And if you're writing something about that, then you should be nervous. It should bring you into the heart of your feelings, whatever they might be. For me, it was absolute terror. Just terror that I would not know what to do. I felt my father was the wisest man I ever knew. And that even though I was 19, I felt that he would tell me the secret of life. And he hadn't told it to me yet, but he was going to. And when he died, I thought, I'll never know what the secret of life is. I'll never know how to survive. Because I want to be an artist, and I don't know how you make a living as an artist. So maybe he would tell me, but it wasn't there anymore. And I was like lost for years because of that. And even now when I'm talking about it, I'm getting all, I'm feeling that feeling I had when I was just scared shitless about life. that I wouldn't know what to do. And you know, the funny thing about it is, it's been, I don't know, 60 years since my dad died.
The
And
first of many
I'm still not
foes.
sure I know what the secret of life is, and I'm still not sure I know how to survive. I can't believe I've survived this long, but I have. But I don't believe it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know how people survive. You know, I always think they know something I don't know. So, nervous is not good.
How are Father's Day?
How what?
Father's Day, June 20th. How is that?
Father's Day? You mean when I'm the father of my son? And
Any time Father's Day comes up.
I, you know, once my son was born, it was more a question of me being the father to him. And so that's what Father's Day was for me, that, you know, he would
I bring justice.
get me something or write me a card. And every card he wrote, I've saved them. I've got them up on my bookshelves, you know, so I can see them. And, you know, he always would make me a Father's Day card. You know, I never thought about that.
Must never waver.
I think about my father so much, or did think about him so much, that I don't think I reserved one day. Today's going to be the day I think about him. I thought about my father so much, especially when I was unsure or in trouble or worried or whatever. I would think, what would my father do? What would he say? What would he tell me? So I don't need Father's Day, you know. But he died when he was 54, I think. So when I made 54, I remember thinking, okay, because I always thought, will you live to be as old as he was? At the time, 54 seemed like very old. When I was 54, I felt like I just got started. My son was about 5 years old, so I became a father when I was 49. So, you know, at 54, I thought, okay, now it's me. You know, it's not him. Now, you know, it's my turn. I've got to do it. So that was a big year for me when I turned 54.
Forge onward.
Was it easy for you to write about this?
I've written about my relationship with my father many times, in different ways. And my mother, too, who's kind of a crazy, according to my therapist, paranoid schizophrenic. So I wrote about my mother, too. But I've written about my father. I've written about being a father. When Josh was born, and I would have to go to Safeway and get diapers and Enfamil, the milk, you know, you drink. So I've written about father issues quite a bit. You know, Bukowski has that great poem about his own father. When he goes to his house after his father dies, and he puts on his father's suit, which hangs on him a little loose. The poem is called The Twins, because he looks at himself in the mirror and he thinks, okay, now I'm my father. So we could be twins. So, I guess you wrestle with your father one way or the other. Those who get good fathers, those who have bad fathers. My dad was a wise man, a great man, loved by everyone. He also had a problem. He was an alcoholic and a lot of anxiety in my family growing up. I'm a, quote, adult child of alcoholic, you know, that type of thing. But I don't know if I read about him a lot after I got to be 54. I think at that point I kind of thought, well, okay, I got this far without knowing anything. Maybe I can go the rest of the way without knowing anything. And I still don't know anything, you know. Every day when I wake up in the morning, it's you know, I try to guess what time it is by the light. You know, the light outside, that beginning of dawn. And I try to guess what time it is. And I'll look over and I'll see what time it is, and I'll think to myself, okay, another day to write your poems, teach, and love your friends, and love the world. So
Dép nó rảnh luôn rồi.
that's a long answer to a very simple question you asked. Where's the green tape?
Great. I know there's a lot of emotion. I remember there was a clerk at a grocery store, and I'd seen the person many times, and I was sort of friendly with them, and it was Father's Day, and the clerk, so I forgot what happened, and he said, "You're not wishing me a happy Father's Day," and I could see how hurt he was. And because you think that just because I'm older, I don't, and I could just see it was like a real wound to this person.
Yeah.
And I said to him, the reason I didn't wish you that is because Father's Day wasn't a thing for me. I never knew mine, so that was why. So we were both coming to it with these two different things, but I could see even he was still, this was very hard for him, and here he was behind this cashier trying to save face. And, I just remember that being a very interesting moment. I never forgot it.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of moments like that with people we don't know.
I kind of knew him. Just I would joke with him, and I actually never saw him after that. I don't know what happened to him, but hopefully he's okay. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that we don't know fatherhood, motherhood, all those things are very sort of deep. You talk about the deep voice. These are things that we all carry our own wound or whatever with us.
Yeah, and you don't know whether you're supposed to play a role or what is it to be a father. I remember when my wife was pregnant, when she called me on the phone to tell me she was pregnant, the first thought I thought was, okay, now it begins. Meaning I have to take life seriously. And then the night her water broke, we were watching Sleeping with the Enemy, a movie on TV, and it was about 11 o'clock at night. You always want your water to break in the morning so you can go to the hospital and you've had a good night's sleep. But no, it was 11 o'clock at night, we were exhausted, and our water breaks, and we're driving to Kaiser, and I stop at a Ralph's or something, and I get ice, because they said something about, she can have ice or something like that. I don't know what it was. But I went into the Ralph's with the neon lights, and everything was real bright. And it was 11:30 at night. And again, I just had got a little ice chest to put the ice in. I remember thinking, okay, this is it. We know it was a boy. Your son's going to be born very soon, and your life is going to totally change. So there was that feeling that everything was going to be different. Well, nothing really changes. You just go on day by day, being and dealing with what you have to deal with. But in my imagination, I thought, it was like, okay, showtime. It's like you're doing a play, and they go, you're on, and then you have to walk out there and, I'm the father. Where's my lines? And they go, there are no lines. I go, what do you mean? They go, well, we don't have any lines. Well, there's got to be lines. I mean, I'm a father. What's the role? What do I got to do? And I go, I don't know. And they go, well, are you a father? He goes, yeah, but I don't know what the hell to do. Well, anybody here know what to do? No. I'm in front of 500 people here. What am I going to do? Well, you got to be a father. Yeah, but what is that about? I don't know. So you just go and do it. That whatever role you think it is, it's not what you think it's going to be.
You are right to fear me.
I remember when Josh was in 3rd grade. I was driving into school, and my son is very stubborn. I don't know where he gets it. He's really stubborn. I mean, you don't tell Josh what to do. And we're in the car, and I don't know, we got into something. He and my wife would always say, don't make it a fight, I couldn't help it. I'm going to hold my position, he's going to hold his. And before you know it, I'm kind of yelling and screaming and da-da-da, and we're just driving, it's a mess. We get to school, and it was my day to go to the kids and teach them how to write poetry. So I tell them, write about something true and da-da-da. Anyway, I walk around the room and watch what the kids are writing just to see if they're doing okay. Sometimes a kid maybe doesn't quite know how to get started and I help them. And there's my son writing about me yelling and screaming in the car. Now, I usually have the kids get up and read, and there was no way I could not have him do it if he wanted to, because that would be a bad lesson to teach him. So when it was time to read, I said, okay, who wants to read first? Josh raises his hand. I go, oh shit. So he walks up, lifts it up, and he's writing about being in the car with his dad, who's yelling and screaming and blah, 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 blah. And the kids are like, I mean, they're loving it, and at the same time, they're a little shocked. And I know they're all looking at me. They want to see how am I going to react to it. And I just listened to it like I was listening to a piece of writing, and then when he was finished, I went, good, good. I said, the part there where you mentioned that, you could write a little more about that, make it. In other words, I responded to it like it was a piece of writing worthy of being commented on. But how do you plan for something like that? They're the kids, I'm the teacher, and he's writing about me, being a kind of not very empathetic father. So, I don't know. Whatever's in the handbook, it wasn't in the handbook I got. You just sort of stumble your way through and hope you do your best. I think that's why in Saving Private Ryan, at the very end of the movie, when he goes to the grave of the major who saved his life, and he's an old man now, and he hopes that his life was worthy of being saved. I broke down in the movie theater because the way I related to it was,
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
at that point when I saw the movie, I hope my life will be worthy as a father, as a husband, as a friend.
Minions have
And I
spawned.
was just, it's probably the most I've cried in a movie ever in my life, when he said, I hope my life will be worthy. So you make a lot of mistakes. You fail, right? You fail. And when you fail, you got to go, well, this is what's supposed to happen.
And that day that Josh wrote this piece about the car ride over, that was the deeper voice?
Yeah, it was a deep voice, and he was writing about something that was like pretty brave, gutsy of him to write about that. I mean, I'm his father, I'm the teacher. I'm coming into the classroom as the teacher, teaching everyone how to write. And I'm telling them, matter of fact, I read a poem about my own father, come to think of it, that's part of the lesson. So he went and did it, bravo to him. So, like I said, I had to validate that. I couldn't, tell him, no, don't read it. It'll make me look bad. Well, if it made me look bad, too bad. Because what he wrote was good. And as a teacher and as a father, I have to reinforce to him that this is how you make art. You tell the truth. You take risks. You write about what's hard to write about.
Ally has been slain.
You say in literature there are 4 basic voices or tonalities?
Well, 5
5
if you count your own voice, your
An enemy
natural
has been slain.
speaking voice as a writer. So the other 4,
Ally
there's
has
only
been
4
slain.
other tonalities in all of Western literature. And
Enemy double
I have
kill.
a
Để kiệt sức
standing
luôn, quay hơi bị chậm.
offer to any of my students, if they can comb any piece of writing from Homer to the present and find a page or a paragraph or even one sentence that's not one of those 4, then I will give them, and I have one of those play money, says $1 billion, and I hold up the $1 billion bill and I go, if you can find a sentence that's not one of those 4, I hold up the $1 billion bill, say, I'll give you $1 billion. And so far, no one has collected it. So there's only 4 basic styles or tones or voices, depending on how you want to look at it, in all of Western literature, beside writing in your own style. And then there's the other 4.
And those other 4 are?
Tommy, Billy, Sarah, and Becky.
Oh, okay. Oh, I know Becky.
Ally has been slain.
Yeah.
Well, one of them is what I call straight talk.
enemy
All
has been slain.
the names I use come from a poem by another writer. So Nikki Giovanni has a poem called Straight Talk. So I use that, in other words, and these would all be writing in your own voice. I cover that, how to get the voice deep and all that, in my first book on method writing called Method Writing. And then
Học say
the 4 voices that you just asked me about,
học từ kick.
I cover in my second book. It's called Advanced Method Writing, and at the bottom it says The Art of Tonal Dynamics. So it's how to take these 4 tones and use them the way
Nhảm thế à.
a composer of music would use different kinds of musical
An enemy
percussion
has been
effects,
slain.
you know, whatever, because the tones change in music. Very deep, and then suddenly it becomes light and so forth. So the 4 tones that I have names for them. Straight talk means you're not in a deep voice. You're very chit-chat. Everything is, boy, you won't believe what happened last night. I mean, there I am standing on the corner, and would you believe it? The guy comes up, he's got a cigarette in his nose, and very chit-chatty. The opposite of the deep voice. The second voice is that writerly, poetic style that a lot of writers use, and that a lot of writers think you're supposed to write like that, where you give metaphors and similes and fancy description and all that kind of stuff. And on a scale of 1 to 10, you could do it in a subtle way, or you could do it in a very extreme way. So, for instance, if you read William Faulkner or Marcel Proust, these are writers who write in a very ornate style, almost at a 10. But then there are other writers who use a little bit of style, but they're only at a 1 or a 2. But it's all not writing in your natural voice. It's a heightened style. Then the third voice is the oldest technique in all of writing. It's where you repeat. It goes to the Bible. It goes all the way back to the Bible, where you repeat things 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So a lot of your great politicians or preachers will use this voice. I have a dream that one day blah, 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 blah. I have a dream that one day blah, 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 blah. I have a dream that one day blah, blah, blah. Nobody remembers the blah, blah, blah. But everybody remembers the I have a dream speech. Because by repeating it, he makes that a kind of drumbeat, a rhythmic pulse. So that is the most ancient form of writing. That was how people remembered, because people couldn't read. So even if someone wrote something, they would perform it. The repetition of phrases was the best of times, it was the worst of times, from Charles Dickens. Or the Bible. There's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to sow, a time to buy and a time, The repetition creates a way to remember, because people couldn't read, so to remember. So that device, that repetition, is a technique that can be used in more ways
Thế
than
mấy
you
thằng lồn này
realize.
tao
So
mày cố dụ
when
à?
I teach it, first people have to know how to do it. It's just how to do it. Then you learn many different ways you can use it. There can be subsets of the repetition with different repetitions. Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. See, these people around that time, they studied what was called the Greek and Latin revival. And that was one of the things you studied if you went into politics or into religious preaching, was the repetition. You studied that. So Lincoln's Gettysburg Address comes directly from that, where you repeat something. He talks about in the Gettysburg Address, we've come here to dedicate a portion of this field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that we may live, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. So we cannot. 237 words, I think, is the Gettysburg Address. If you go through it, you will find 5 or 6 places where Lincoln repeats something like a mantra 3, 4, sometimes 5 times in a row. And he does it at the very end, that this nation shall have a new birth of freedom.
Better you than me.
And something, what is it? Remember how he ends his speech? Of the people, by the people, for the people. So that's a repetition. That is a technique that he learned in his study. So that's the third voice. Then the fourth one is actually not the voice. It's where you use language in a non-communicative way, where you're writing almost stream of consciousness or absurd images, or maybe you've got someone who's got Alzheimer's or someone who's drunk, but it's language that is not used in a normal linear way. And poets and writers have been doing that for at least over 100 years, started in France with Arthur Rimbaud and Baudelaire, and then the Russian futurists were doing it. They created a thing called Zom poetry that didn't make sense, and so forth. So any writing that is kind of like modern art, where you have cubism or abstract painting or abstract expressionism, where you're just seeing a lot of crap on the canvas. Well, what would be the analogy of that with words? Well, it would be words and sentences that don't make any sense. In other words, I did a whole book of I called it Absence of Field, because there's no logical field to it. It's all disconnected on the page. So I kind of took that idea, and I have a book called Lucky Finds, in which I put it all on cards. So when you got my book, I'm back. It's called Lucky Finds. So, but actually it's not a book. It's a bunch of cards. And when I teach in a classroom with kids, I lay all this out on the floor, and the kids absolutely love it. You know, I just spread all the cards out on the floor, and they're just, things are this way and that way, and I hand drew those letters that you see there. What is that? There's another one. There's another one. Can you see that?
A little bit. What? I'm just curious. What are some of, like, if you chose one? They're different letters. So.
Yeah, they're hand drawn. I draw, and sometimes the writing is upside down and sideways. I'll do a different font, but each piece is kind of it hangs together in a way, but it's up to the reader to figure it out. Something like that. But when I show this to kids in school, we spread all the cards out on the floor, and then they make their own, and they just love it. They absolutely love it. See, on this one, you got to read it this way, and you got to turn it upside down and read it that way. Well, here's one where I just have a lot of negative space, and it just says carbon cycle, illustrious, and then there's those 2 letters. So, I play with forms. So it's not just like you're reading a story or a poem, it's all broken up. There. Anyway, there's 52 of them, and it's called Lucky Finds because it's like you come across something on the pavement and you pick it up and go, oh, a quarter. Huh, a lucky find.
For a new writer, should they try these different tonalities or personalities, or just stay in the beginning with their authentic voice, and then once they have mastered that, then venture out to these other sort of areas?
Well, as I said, I'm kind of an old athlete, and I learned boxing and swimming and football and basketball and how to play golf. I always noticed that when you're being taught from the ground up. You're being taught basic movements, and then you build on that. For instance, when I was boxing, I spent a long time not being allowed to throw punches. Everything had to be footwork. And I thought, come on, when do I get to punch somebody? But when you learn footwork, you discover that a punch will have as much strength,
Blades.
not as your power here, but in your legs. And if you are balanced when you throw a punch, and if you are transferring the energy from the legs to the body,
Wins.
you get more power. So everything depends on the legs and the stance. Same with tennis. When you're playing tennis, if your feet are too close together or too far apart, you don't have as much balance or power. So one of the things you learn playing tennis is you learn to run to where the ball is and then plant your feet correctly before you swing. Because if your feet are planted correctly, then the swing, you know, if you learn how to do the swing, that would be the next thing. But foundation is very important. So in my first class in method writing, it's all about the voice, how to manipulate the natural voice. And yeah, you practice. We have exercises that you do from week to week, and we work on it. Then when you go to my advanced class, now we work on the 4 voices. And again, you're practicing. And at some point, we have an exercise where you get a pair of dice and you throw the dice, and each number corresponds to one of the concepts you've learned up to this point. So if a number 2 comes up, and let's say it's the fancy schmancy voice, you've got to write 4 lines in fancy schmancy. Then you roll the dice again, and 6 comes up. What is that? Oh, that's straight talk. Well, hey, well, you won't believe what happened. But it's all the same piece. It's all a coherent idea or story, but you're switching every 4 lines. And so everybody thinks, oh, it's not going to make any sense. But it ends up making perfect sense because you're changing tonalities. And it's the change of tonalities that makes for drama more than just the drama in the story. I don't know if you fully get that. The story isn't where the drama is. The drama is in the tonalities that you switch. And great composers, when they write, they don't just write the same note 100 times. They're changing. When Beethoven took my class early on, he had written a symphony and he brought it in, and the opening of the symphony went this way. Da 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 da, 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 da 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 da. I said, Ludwig, it's a little boring. You're doing nothing but the deep voice. Why don't you do like the straight talk voice, you know, where you get high like that? And he said, oh, well, I got to try that. I will do that next week. And then he comes in next week and he did the deep voice, but then he switched to that very light voice. So now when you listen to the Fifth Symphony, it goes da 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 da, da 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 da, ba da da dum, 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 bum ba, da 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 da. Very good, Ludwig. You're getting the idea of tonal dynamics. You want to switch those tones. So when they do that dice thing, it surprises a lot of them. They go, wow, that really worked. The piece made sense. Those changes in tone didn't give the reader whiplash. It just felt like good writing. And good writing is tonal dynamics. And one of the reasons why a lot of people's stories are boring is because the voice is the same all the way through.
Can we practice something right now?
Can we?
Yeah, together. Can you give me an assignment and then correct me? And
Are you going to write it or are you going to
well,
say it?
I'll just probably say it. Just maybe, I don't know, if I was in the class.
Okay.
And you were
It's hard
testing me.
to say it. I mean, it's about writing, but
Okay.
I've given you the 4 voices, right? Plus writing like you talk, right? So you got writing like you talk. You've got that high voice that's a lot of chit-chat and stuff. Boy, you won't believe what happened, and then, man, you know, knocked me for a feather, but I was there, and blah, blah, blah. Then there's fancy voice, poetic. Very, lots of images, metaphors, similes, all that kind of crap. And then there's that read and sung where you take something and you repeat it. Anything, it doesn't matter. Whatever you say, you can repeat it 3 times. Whatever you say, you can say it twice. Whatever you say, you can say it louder. Whatever you say, you can say it softer. Whatever you can say it with more feeling. Whatever you say, you can say it dead. In other words, any phrase is repeatable. You just have to repeat it and then add the rest of the sentence. The rest of the sentence is what would be different. See, in a larger sense, we cannot, what? Dedicate. We cannot, what? Consecrate. We cannot, what? Hallow this ground. So that's the repetition. And then the last voice is total nonsense. Now, do you want to do it? Is that what
Yeah,
you want to do?
you want to give me a topic? I couldn't.
Oh, no, we don't do topics.
You don't do topics. Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't do windows.
You don't do no
and we don't do
windows.
topics.
I gotta call your manager.
So you're just gonna, in other words, I'm gonna call out the voice. In other words, what I want you to do is just to talk. And if you talk, eventually you'll probably get into something you remember or something will come up. Don't worry about it. So if you fail, who cares? You know, what do
Okay,
you worry
right?
about?
Yeah. Who cares?
However, I will say, if I say straight talk, if I say lost world, that's fancy schmancy. If I say read and sung, that's the repetitious form. If I say absence of field, meaning no rhyme or reason, just nonsense. And if I say like you talk, just talk like you talk. Okay? So you can start blabbing about anything. Are you ready?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Ready? Go.
I'm noticing that food prices are going up a lot. Things seem very expensive, and I'm not quite sure why. But,
Very close.
it's really, you're going into the market, and I'm noticing a dollar increase in what I normally buy.
No, you're still talking like you talk. You got to get that high voice. I went in the market like that. It's crazy. Did I get
fuck?
Okay.
Got to go up there.
Okay.
So keep going. Straight talk.
So I'm at the market the other day, and there's this woman, and she's in my way, and I'm trying to get to the food, and the stuff is not on sale like I thought it was supposed to be, and then I see
Read and
that.
sung.
Sorry, that one is the repetition. The food that we eat brings us life, but if life brings us nothing but bills and duty
Good.
and chores and errands, and they don't take us anywhere. and
Lost
life-
world. Fancy schmancy.
Oh. According to the GDP, no, let me rephrase that.
It's hard to do it when you're
Yeah,
talking
it
because we
is.
don't talk that way.
No.
See,
It's almost as if I'm writing a letter or something. It has come to my attention that food prices have escalated beyond the normal day-to-day.
more poetry.
Okay.
Fancy schmancy.
It has come to my attention that food, which is life, which is what sustains us, which is what gives us a reason to be with our loved ones and break daily bread and love one another and come together as community.
Good, but you're not writing in that style. You're still talking like you talk.
Okay.
It would have to be poetic bullshit.
Okay, I thought it was, but
Because
yeah.
no,
Okay.
you were doing not good phrases,
Okay.
but you could talk that way.
Okay.
See, but you got to write poetically.
And what's the one that's abstract? Where I'm-
Because life streamed out like a rhythm upon the cloistered hills of existence, breaks however many stars that fuel the clouds that break into the heart and expose the truth of your own soul, rigid against tribulation, striven against death, broken open against life, the platitudes of existence and the small icicles that form inside the caverns of your soul break out of you. You know, that's bullshit. But that's Lost World. You got to be able to do that shit.
Okay, wow. Okay.
And it's hard to do it when you're talking.
Yeah, no.
See, that's why this is about writing. It's not about talking.
Okay.
So it's harder for you to do that. But that's what you would have to shift into. And then keep going, absence of field.
And that is where I'm almost ask not what your country can do for you. but
No, you're making sense.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So, food, life,
Hôm nay
Love,
mình kéo time rồi
death.
mình đám này mình là
honor.
That's a feel.
gì hết.
Because you're saying one word at a time, each one is different, but that's a feel. It's a logical progression. So each unit can't be the same as the one before, or else you're establishing a field, like an electrical field, gravitational field. This is no field. So the words and the phrases are like all jumbled up. But if you just do the same thing, that's a field. So you could do two of them, but then the third thing's got to be a phrase. Then another phrase. Then something else, you got to just keep breaking sentence structure around. You have to practice these things. They're not as simple as
No, this is
as you
difficult.
think,
Very difficult. Yeah.
Custom shaved leather of any kind of the sofa retains black teeth of soft. There, in the eyeballs of no one came it father. Hair, broken, nostril. The shiny light of the sea that protrudes over the waves. Here, nowhere. Stream, captain, broken arrow. It's always in the gut of nothing was done. He was a champion. See, I'm just blah, 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 blah. That's absence of feel.
Right.
Nothing can ever connect or converge.
Hỏi
You can't have a feel. Writing a sentence is a feel.
Okay.
Subject, verb, object, preposition. It's
Okay.
sentence is a feel. This would be an absence of feel.
Mouth, gold, belly of the beast, golden wheat, air.
Something wrong now. Because you've done a lot of short things.
Ask not what your country can do for you.
Good. But don't finish the sentence. Ask not what your country can, and then stop. See?
Okay.
But
And-
that's a technique that's been used in writing in the 20th century by a lot of writers, including James Joyce, the stream of consciousness. And you might do that if you were having a character who was either having a hallucination, or they were demented, having dementia, or someone is falling, and you're trying to, what it's like to be falling, what goes through a person's mind, not in normal sentences, but everything is colliding because it's all happening in 5 seconds as they're falling. So you could use the technique to, someone's drowning, you would use absence of field for that.
And so in these 4 other tonalities, not the regular voice, quote unquote, that sharpens the tool, that strengthens the muscle. How does that help?
Do you pay attention to how the writer is working, or do you just enjoy the story?
Depends on whether I'm playing something or reading something and there are other distractions going on.
Okay, what about music? Well, do you listen to any kind of classical music at all?
Yes, I have.
Well, have you ever listened to Bruckner and really paid attention to what Bruckner does compared to, let's say, Brahms? Bruckner just happens to feel a lot. Bruckner's got tonalities and changes that are very mysterious and very sublime, whereas Brahms has got these melodies that roll over, almost like to be read and sung. So if you pay attention to writers, and you pay attention to composers, and you pay attention to almost any kind of art, Picasso, any painter, you will see that they do different things all the time. Yeah, they might have their basic, I'll say, writing in their own voice approach, but they use all these other techniques. The next time you read a book, a good novel, I promise you, you're going to see writing like you in your own voice. You're going to see Lost World, which is poetic, fancy description or something. You're going to see read and sung once in a while. Look, Charles Dickens opens up Tale of Two Cities with was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the season of this, it was the winter of discontent. You're going to see repetition. You're also going to see absence of field sometime where the work is very stream of consciousness, whether it's James Joyce or Virginia Woolf or Toni Morrison or writers who do that. You're going to see it, but you can't be reading for pleasure. You have to be reading like you're paying attention. I know how to drive a car. I would have no idea how to fix the engine. But a mechanic, he understands how the engine works. And when people look at writing, most people, they don't look under the hood to see what's going on. They just learn how to drive and turn the wheel and start and stop and go fast and go slow. But a writer, if you study writing, that question you asked me, Karen, you will go, oh, look, he just went from writing like you talk to fancy schmancy. Oh, look, he just went from fancy schmancy to straight talk. Holden Caulfield, Catcher in the Rye, does it all the time. So you will see those four tones and the tone of writing in your own voice. You will see that being done just the way Beethoven went. You will see these changes of tone, of tonality, of dynamic. That's why I call it tonal dynamics, because it's dynamic, it changes. So you're going to see it in literature all over the place.
So is the first part of becoming a better writer to pay attention, not just to your own writing, to other works of art, not even literature, but music?
There's no great writer that hasn't paid attention to almost every writer that came before them, going all the way back to Gilgamesh, the Iliad, the Odyssey, Augustine's Confessions, Catullus' poems in the 1st century BC, Dante. They know it all. And they don't just read for pleasure. They read like a writer. They read like an artist. They pay attention. They study. Oh, look what he's doing. Look what he's doing. And then they copy it a little bit, and then they extend it even further. Artists are always influenced by the artists who came before them, and then they go one down. So, yeah, whatever you do, whether you're a sculptor or a painter or a writer or a composer, you got to study the people who came before you and see what they're doing, because it's a conversation. Artists are talking to each other across the millennia. They're talking, and you want to see what the conversation is. You want to know what Dante said to Shakespeare, and what Shakespeare said to Homer, and what Homer said to Philip Roth or Anne Sexton. What are they saying? Not in the message, but in the technique. In the technique. Oh, look what Bruckner did. Look at the way he extended that chord and did a variation. That was interesting. That was different from anything Beethoven did. Oh, look what Mahler did. Look how he did that. You study it. Any composer, you ask them, man, they've studied them all.
So being conscious
and you
of
want to
technique.
see Absence of Field? Check out Elliot Carter, oldest. He might be dead by now, but he was in his hundreds the last time I heard. He wrote a string quartet just recently. Listen to Beethoven's last 6 string quartets. A lot of that is Absence of Field. As a matter of fact, if you listen to Beethoven's Piano Sonata 110 or 111, I can't remember which one it is. I was listening to it one day, and there's like a 4-bar section in there that, if you hear it, if you're listening, you'll hear it. It's jazz. Where he got it, I don't know. I mean, boom. But if you listen, all of a sudden it's jazz. And then it goes back to the normal kind of progressions that they did in Beethoven's time. So his string quartets, his late piano concertos, you're going to hear a lot of stuff and you're going to go, whoa, where'd that come from? How did he do that? Because as an artist, you always want to see not what did they do, but how did they do it? How did they create that? It's not about the plot of the story. It's about the technique. How did they do that? How did they do that?
How does a writer know they have written something in their true voice?
I think you know what true writing is. You know what it is. I mean, I know when I'm bullshitting.
How do you know?
You just know. I know it. Actors know it even in the middle of doing it. Actors can be in the middle of the play, and at some moment they can go, uh-oh, I'm bullshitting. And then actors have techniques to get them back grounded. They look at the other actor, they connect with their being, as opposed to acting. So, you know when you're bullshitting. Now, with writing, it's not about whether you're not being true, it's about, are you writing sentences that you wouldn't speak? That's the difference between writing in your own voice and writing in those other four tones that are not a natural voice. Read and Sung, Lost World, to be Straight Talk, and Absence of Field, those are not natural voices, those are literary.
Rồi nhìn mạnh quá.
You wouldn't write like that were it not for the fact that we live in a post-literate age. I mean, you read books, so you have learned from school how to write like a writer. You write that way all the time. You use prepositional phrases and participle clauses because it's writing. You put in adjectives and adverbs like you bought a stamp collecting kit full of them and you're using them. You wouldn't do that if it weren't not for writing. If this was a pre-literate society, everything you write would be like you talk because there would be no other way to write. But once you start developing these techniques or styles, then you learn that in school and you mimic that when you write. And when you want to be a writer, you throw in adjectives and adverbs and fancy verbs. You don't say he said, you say he responded. When was the last time you were talking to someone and saying, yeah, and I came home and I asked my brother what he was doing and he responded by saying, well, no, you don't do that. You say, I said, you know, where did you go last night? And he said, well, I stayed out. And I said, the whole night? And he said, yeah, the whole night. And I said, you know you're going to get in trouble with mom and dad. And he said, that's how we talk. We don't go, he responded, and then I murmured, and then I averred, and then I retorted. You learn that in school. You wouldn't write that way unless you learned it in school from writing. So you attune yourself to the difference between writing like you talk and writing in a literary. Just like a
Cho nó lên rồi.
musician
Hiệu,
knows
đóng
when they
bằng,
hit
giảm
a
đáp.
flat or a sharp note.
Rách,
They hear it.
nhông vạch.
So if I'm, oh, I'm sorry.
You can hear it.
If I'm writing and I know that, not that it's garbage, but it's not true, it's not authentic, it's BS as to what you said earlier.
Okay. Could you, what do you mean by true?
Well, that's what I'm trying to determine.
Well, but
So-
authentic writing and something being true are two different things.
Okay.
I can lie,
Every time
but
it's
I can
no
do it
less
in an
strange,
authentic voice.
no
How is
less
that?
painful.
We do it all the time. We make up stories, we lie. Well, all of a sudden we lie, we start doing it like a writer. If we did that, everybody would know we're lying. Sometimes we lie better than when we... Look, the truth is just the facts. Saying the truth like you talk is the issue. Lying like you talk is the issue. Ask me to make something up.
Okay. Let's suppose you're an attorney and you're presenting your client's case, and maybe you know your client's guilty, but this is your job to defend the person. The person's maybe involved in a Ponzi scheme, and maybe they had kids to support, and their back was against the wall, and they had to do what they had to do, and it's your duty to defend this person.
And which one of those sentences you just said are not like you talk?
It's your duty to defend this person. I don't think I would say that.
You wouldn't say what?
It's your duty to defend this person.
You wouldn't say that.
I don't think so.
You just said it.
Right, but I don't think I would say it in my real voice.
That's your sentence.
Okay.
You're not talking like a writer. You're talking like a person.
A poison, okay.
You're writing like you
Hey,
talk.
yo. Okay, so then help me out here. So, because we're doing like a little bit of a
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so then, is that my authentic voice?
You
Rồng
can't
câu tơ con là sao vậy?
Like
Khét
a-
con là cái
You don't know how to do that. But you know how to write like a writer. Because they're two different things. And it's very hard for someone who thinks that writing fancy is how they talk to say to them, no, don't do that. You wouldn't use that adjective there. You wouldn't use that adverb there if you were just talking. Then people have to, just like with acting, sometimes people are overacting and they don't even know it. Oh, they think they're great, but they're overacting, you can smell it a mile away. So you have to develop what Hemingway called the bullshit detector, where you can know when you're writing an authentic sentence. This doesn't mean it's true. It could be a lie. That's not the issue. The issue is, are you writing, are you acting true? Look, if I'm going to be Hannibal Lecter, I don't eat people's flesh, but I got to act like I do. So it isn't about what the story is about. It's about my ability as an actor to look real. Whether I'm talking about eating flesh or talking about eating a ribeye steak. I still got to be talking and performing like what I'm doing is true. So when I write something that's a lie, I still got to write it in my natural voice. And if I don't, I should know how to do that and do it on purpose. But that's writing. It's very hard for people to talk like in poetic form. It's very hard. We're not trained that way. Gore Vidal and maybe William Buckley could do it. You know, they could pontificate. The American economy, such as it was labeled during the time of Lincoln, when unbeknownst to both of them, the forces of capitalism had somehow merged with socialism, had therefore, even though people were not aware of it, catapultized itself in such a way that the proclivities of those who traded in the market absconded with whatever kinds of dough, we might say, that they could lay their hands on, if you know what I mean. See, that's William Buckley. Nobody talks that way. That's Buckley or Vidal. They know how to speak like that. If I'm a defense lawyer in front of a jury, I'm going to talk naturally. I'm not going to talk like a professor of English. But if I had to talk that unnaturally, I probably would write it and memorize it, because it wouldn't come natural to me, unless as a defense attorney I did it a lot. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, on a windswept night when my client, unbeknownst to the proclivities of his own heart, trampled across the snow-covered lawn of the murdered victim, he didn't know, realize, or even perceive that life, thread, moved, stretched to the very end of its core, had somehow, in the being and nothingness of time, caused him to freeze and be unable to pick up the axe, frozen, standing, held up against the light of the sun, and smash it against the victim's head. No, ladies and gentlemen, he did not have the intestinal fortitude to advance step by inch and step by foot into the den of the victim's own activities. See, that's not how you talk. That's a lot of bullshit. But it doesn't have to be true or a lie. That's separate from how I say it, how I write it. You either write the way a person talks, or you write in a literary style, and you have to know the difference between the two, and you have to know when to do one and when to do the other. Just like a good actor sometimes knows when to act. Sometimes you have to act. You're being natural, and then all of a sudden you take a line and you go, I'm going to do this like Shakespeare. Now, have you ever seen the movie, I think it's called Network? You know? Do you know the scene? Do you know the scene where
It's in the newsroom?
he brings him into that room, Mr. Beale, and tells him that what he's doing he can't do anymore because he's really upsetting the whole business structure of television, money, and all that stuff. So they go into that room where there's a long table and there's those green lights that they use in boardrooms. And he brings him in and he sits him down at one end of the thing, and then he goes to the other end. And then the lines he has is, Mr. Beale, you have tampered with the forces of nature. Okay? Now, Ed Beatty made a decision. I'm going to say this line like you might say it in Shakespeare, not the way a person would talk. Now, the line is written as it's written, but an actor has to interpret it. That's different from a writer writing something in a forced literary way. So here's an actor who's being natural, and then suddenly he becomes very Shakespearean. Now, I will do the scene for you. He says, Mr. Beale, have a seat. Could you pass me over? Okay, just a couple things I want to go over with you. He walks right over. Mr. Beale, you have tampered with the forces of nature. You see, Mr. Beale,
I
the
read
economy
it
is a small thing.
again and again and again.
So
and
he
again.
switched
And until now,
from
I still
talking
read
in
that
a
book
natural voice to a
It's
kind of a
a very
Shakespearean,
good book
big kind of
to
thing.
start
Well, writers can
because
do that too.
it,
They can be writing in a
children
natural
book
sentence structure,
and
then they
it
can
has
shift
very
into something
deep meaning
poetic. And it might only be for one
to learn
sentence
from the book.
because they want to kind
It's
of
very, very
give
good
something
book
extra
and
to the
meaningful
moment,
book
and they know
to
how to
start
do that.
if
So-
you are the beginner to English. Second, I buy for Netflix and I watch movie without subtitle to enhance my listening skill on English. And in 2022, I
Welcome to
write
Summoner's Rift.
my first novel in English. That's how I learn English. Hi, I'm Iris. And
Minions have spawned.
The acting analogy I gave you is an acting analogy. The writing analogy would be speaking in a normal way, and then all of a sudden you're getting very poetic, and then writing it that way. And you have to know the difference. You know, and as Hemingway said, you have a built-in detector that can tell when you're doing it inadvertently. If you do it, you want to do it on purpose. And you want to know how to write in that fancy style, and you want to know how to write in a very simple way. When Falstaff in Henry IV Part 2 sees Prince Hal, who's now the king, and when King Henry IV was just the prince, and he hung out with Falstaff, who's a rogue and a thief and a big buffoonish comic character. Once he becomes king, Falstaff is so excited. He tells Anthony, now he's king, he's going to call me into the castle, and I'm going to have a job, and I'm going to make a lot of money. And Falstaff is thinking how he's going to be able to steal money and all that sort of stuff. And then the scene comes where the coronation comes, and Hal is walking down with the coronation, and Falstaff is in the crowd, and he rushes out, and he says, "Hal, my boy, my prince." And he was expecting Hal to look at him and say, "Falstaff, come," you know, the whole thing. But Hal is now king, and Hal, as king, Henry IV, must renounce everything that Falstaff stood for to be a good king. That's what Shakespeare was writing about. What does it take to be a good king? You've got to be a man of the people, but you also have to know how to be a king. So Falstaff says, and Falstaff is the richest, probably the most loved character in all of Shakespeare, because he's funny and he's very human, and we see how he's full of shit. So we loved him. He had great actors play Falstaff. He goes, "Prince, my boy," and he opens his arms, and Hal looks at him and he says, "I know thee not, old man. Fall to thy knees. Presume not that I am the thing that I was." Whew. That is pretty powerful. And except for the thee, it's writing like you talk. You talk about Shakespeare? I know thee not, old man. Presume not I am the thing I was. Fall to your knees. Try the guitar. And Shakespeare knows how to write the guitar,
An ally
and
has
he
been
also knows how to
slain.
write poetically. And if you go through Shakespeare's plays, you can see the differences and the changes, even with absence of field. when King Lear is on the heath going mad, blow winds crack your cheek, you know, and he goes crazy. Some of that speech is nonsense. It makes no sense because King Lear is losing his mind. He's going crazy. And Shakespeare uses a little bit of absence of feel there. So all these techniques are used by writers, but if you didn't know to look for them, you wouldn't notice them. But if you know what you're looking for, you will notice them. Even straight talk. When would you say all of a sudden, well, anyway? I mean, we do that when we talk all the time. Yeah, you know, when I was 19, my father died, and I had to come home, and we had to bury him. Anyway, so, how have you been? What's going on? I mean, hey, tell me a little bit of something about your life, you know? Haven't seen you in 20 years. We do that in life. We can be deep and authentic, and then all of a sudden, we start talking with that jibber-jabber way. Well, to be or not to be, that is a question. Whether it's just nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against your sea of troubles and their opposing end, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. That's straight talk. There's the trick. You know, you start doing that, and the next thing you know, you're out of your ass. That's basically what Shakespeare does there. Aye, there's the rub. And why does he do it? He does it because he knows that if you don't have changes of tone, it gets boring. Da 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 da. You know, it's boring. So to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. All right, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we chop off the mortal form is give it pause. There's the rub. And then he starts getting deep again. He starts getting deeper. And he does straight talk a little bit later on when he figures out, you know, how he's going to get the king. So Shakespeare does that all the time. Little switches. He goes from writing like you talk to the deep, well, the lost world voice, that fancy voice. Man, he can do poetic stuff like he was born doing that. And he will go to straight talk. And sometimes even absence of feel when he's got a character who's just spouting out nonsense because they're going mad or because they are a con man. You know, maybe they're a con man and they're kind of flummoxing you with jibber-jabber. Shakespeare does all of it, and he knows he's doing it. Go ahead.
Oh, we'll just wait.
Marty, my glasses.
Yeah.
And then here's a good joke. You ready? Oops, excuse me.
Oops, oh. I do that.
I'm doing that for my students because I do that in class all the time. You know, I'll be going, well, you know, excuse me. See, that's tonal dynamics too. You know, when you're pontificating, sometimes you got to know when to change the tone, or else people get bored. Sometimes I do it too late; they're already bored. But you know, you want to change the tone.
Comic relief.
Yeah, and a defense attorney to a jury would, a good one would know to do that.
What is a writer's deep voice, and is there more than one inside of a writer at any time?
We're talking about characters, right?
Deep voice.
Well, there's only one deep voice.
There's only one.
Yes, deep voice. Now, I can see the deep voice of one character, I can see the deep voice of another, and there might be a difference in the character and how it would manifest. The deep voice means you're coming from the deep gut. You're not, you know, you're connected.
But we're not, this isn't deep throat and calling in a tip to Woodward and Bernstein. This is a real person inside. This is who you are, what you really feel. This isn't you pontificating. I'm confused. I'm sorry. I don't know what deep voice means.
It's talking in a way in which you're not entertaining anymore. You're just coming from what you feel in a deep, deep way, and you're not trying to be a writer. You're not trying to perform. You're just
Này khó chịu thế.
connected. When you're not in the deep voice, you're telling a story and you're entertaining. It was a cold night and a man walked out. You know, you're trying to entertain people. But when you're in the deep voice, you are connected in a true way to an emotion. You're connected to an emotion. So you're not just telling the story like a storyteller, you're connected to an emotion. Now, you may not do that for the whole story, because there are parts of the story that might have to be tonal dynamic, with a little Lost World, a little Straight Talk, a little Written Song. But when you're in the deep voice, it's like that commercial with the guy about when E.F. Hutton talks, everybody listens. You know, so when you hear the deep voice, you listen. You could be in a crowded restaurant and everybody's talking, and then someone at the next table starts to whisper, and suddenly your ear catches it. You don't know what they're saying, but you hear the tone of voice, and you go, oh, this is going to be personal. This is going to be deep and emotional. This is not just going to be him telling a story about how he spilled water on himself. You know, it's going to be deep.
An enemy has been slain.
So when you were here in front of us just maybe, 45 minutes ago, and you were telling us about the call that you got at 19, that was your deep voice.
Well, I was reliving it in a way that it was emotionally coming into me, and I wasn't thinking of how do I write this or anything. I was just feeling it. When you're feeling something very authentically, you're in a true place. Can you fake it? Sure.
Shut down.
As a writer, as an actor, you learn where that comes from, and you can go there. You can do it technically. It's a technical thing. Coming from an emotion is technical. If you can do it where you really feel the emotion, that's better, because then you don't have to act. But if you're a good actor, you can find a way to feel the emotion, and then you're there. Some actors have to have a different memory to help them do that. When in Apocalypse Now, when Martin Sheen was doing something in the film, he imagined the death of his own father. That would make him get very emotional. It wasn't in the scene, but that's what he played inside his imagination, which allowed him to get an authentic feeling. It wasn't the same as in the film, but you didn't know that. You don't know what the actor's thinking. They once asked Clark Gable, when you tell a woman you love her in a movie, how do you say that with so much feeling? And he said, well, I just imagine they're a big porterhouse steak. So an actor will maybe find an emotional memory to help them get that memory. Other actors know how to technically do it, just to connect to their deep voice. And the same is in writing. In your writing, you should know when you're writing from your deep voice and when you're just telling a story.
And he had a heart attack on the set of Apocalypse Now, didn't he?
Who?
Didn't Sheen have a heart attack? So
I mean, he's still alive.
Oh yes,
But
he's
he
thriving
had a-
and,
yeah, he
and
had a heart
he's on shows and other films. But I wonder, I don't know what the circumstances were, but if he was imagining that death of his own father, how
You mean
dramatic
it
is
happened in that scene?
I don't know when it happened. I
don't know either. It may have. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. I just thought
know.
maybe it was so real, it was so authentic.
Could have been.
I don't know. But,
Sometimes actors do feel something that's so real. They find a way to personalize it if they need to. Sometimes you don't have to, because you're acting and you're believing what you're doing. But sometimes you can't, so you're really thinking something else in your mind to get the emotion out. Well, sometimes an actor will do something that's so heavy that when the director says cut, they're still in that emotion. So I'm not disputing whether he had a heart attack or not. Maybe he did. I guess acting can be dangerous. You got to be careful. Don't play any parts that might cause you to have a heart attack. I think I'll just play Peter Pan.
well, that would have its own. You might have to be too up and happy, and then
Yeah, you're
That-
right.
that
You
could-
see, so
I don't know if that would be safe either.
art is fraught. There's an interesting rhyme: art and fraught. Art is fraught with danger.
I like that. Yeah, you should. Yeah, that's your next book.
Let's see. first there's Dante. Abandon hope, all ye who enter. That'd be one. The second would be call me Ishmael. And the third would be art is fraught with danger.
Exactly.
Good to remember. You know, all of us who are writers or actors or filmmakers or whatever, we should write that and put it, you know, in our room to remind us art is fraught with danger. It'd be a good thing to remember.
Is that a personal mission statement?
No, I just said it. You know, I said it and I thought, oh, that's fun.
Should a writer have their own personal mission statement?
You mean if we asked writers if they had a mission statement, would they have one?
Maybe it's not even in fully fleshed out. There's just something in them. They know their own emotion.
Yeah, they probably do. I don't have to make one up because I know what Socrates said, and that to me is good enough. He said, know thyself. And then he said, the unexamined life is not worth living. So those are two pretty good mission statements, wouldn't you say? The unexamined life is not worth living, and know thyself. Know thyself.
Do people still live an unexamined life in this day and age?
Well, we all, to some extent. If I examined my life totally, I'd be writhing on the floor in agony. But, you know, I think we can, you know, I've been in therapy. I think a lot of people have had therapy, or they've read books on spirituality, or whatever, you know, gone on retreats and meditations and whatnot. And I'm sure people have examined their life to some extent, of course.
You said, though, that good art is not about, and forgive me, it was something you said about, good art is not about, you know, kind of like getting all your issues out. It's also about making the viewer feel something. And forgive me, I'm...
No, that's true. You're building a chair so people can sit in it. I mean, I can be as creative as I want about making a chair. I know my wife got a chair the other day that she really liked, and we sat in it. And it looked great. She loved the way it looked. And she loved me to put that in my office and blah, blah, blah. And one day I sat in it and I went, boy, this chair's really uncomfortable. So the artist, on some level, they're making something that they hope will touch or astound or shock the viewer. I mean, on one level, you're doing it for yourself. You're exploring your own technical materials. If you're a painter, if you're a writer, you're a sculptor. A good friend of mine who's a poet and a sculptress, she began experimenting with cardboard and made the most amazing things. But a lot of times she's just exploring the materials. What if I do this with the cardboard and I bend it this way and I glue it this way? You're experimenting with the material. Same with a writer. And other times, perhaps, you do care about what the viewer will think or get from it. If you write a story or a poem or something, you're saying, okay, what I wrote, you know, it came out of me, but it could be clearer. I don't think my reader's going to get it 100%. So what do I need to add or cut to make it work better? Because a piece of writing works. It's a piece of writing is like a machine. It works. You know, you get a machine from the hardware store and you plug it in and it doesn't work, you take it back. It might look good. All the parts are put together the right way, but something's wrong. It's not working. And then you bring it and go, oh, there's a washer here that needs to be put in. Well, same thing with a piece of writing or a poem. I go, oh, that image there is not clear. If the image is not clear, then there's no payoff at the end. But so I've got to make that image clear, and then the reader will get it when I get to the end. So you're trying to figure out whether it's a novel or a story or a poem or play or screenplay, whatever. Is it working here in this spot? So when you edit, you're not always just correcting grammar and punctuation. you're thinking of it as a device that has to do something to the viewer or the reader. So, something's not working here. What is it? What do I have to do? Do I have to cut something, add something? Maybe move this over here. Oh, sometimes when someone reads a poem in my class, I will say to them, read it backwards. Not word for word, but line for line. And it works better backwards because when we write, we work either way. We go from an idea to something specific, or we start with something specific, and as we develop the poem, we come into possession of a big idea. And sometimes it works better when you go from the idea to the specific, and sometimes it works better when you go from the specific to an idea. So someone will read something to me and I'll go, oh, okay, they started with an idea and then they got specific. If they flip it, then the reader will get the specific first, and then as the poet comes into possession of the idea, it will make more sense. Well, that's a kind of simplified version of that, but when you're writing, you're thinking, does this work? It's a machine. It's an object. You know, you put a quarter in and it should do what it's supposed to do. And when it doesn't, you fiddle with it. You think of, how do I make this work better? And, you know, there's an old saying, writing is rewriting. So first drafts are usually, that's all, they're first drafts. I've never written anything that didn't go through more than one draft. In other words, I've never written anything that was perfect the first time. Now you're supposed to ask me why.
Well, okay. I was actually thinking about, you said the ending scene of Saving Private Ryan was very emotional.
Yeah.
So, do you think that scene meant different things to different people?
Well,
Thằng lo này
you
một rờ lên.
can't know how something is going to affect someone. People can be affected by something 100 different ways. All you can do as an artist or a writer is to make a good guess and say, in order for this scene to work, the line has to be different. Or I need to put the line over here. Or I need to cut the line and say it different this way. You can only guess. You can only imagine. And ultimately, you are satisfying yourself. You're saying, this works for me, so hopefully it'll work for others.
Now, with the first draft, you had said something previously.
I said that I've never written a perfect first draft.
Well, there was also something you said in another
And you were
interview.
supposed to say,
Okay, but
why
that's
is
not
that?
what I'm actually going to say, though. So what I'm
I know.
going to say is
But
something
I
about
won't give you the
genius.
answer if you don't ask the question.
How about I ask the question afterwards?
You can ask it.
Let me ask the question about genius. We talked about genius.
I know what you're referring to.
Oh, you do? Okay. What is?
I talk about the accidents of genius.
Yes, thank you.
Everyone has genius in them. They just don't know what it is. What they do know is their talent. And your talent will never produce anything great.
Giờ này mày biết là
It will only produce something that's good. Your genius is what is capable of creating something great. But because we rely on our talent, we often never get to our genius, because talent is the obstacle to genius. It's when you don't know what you're doing sometimes. It's when you are falling and you're just at the mercy of the gods, that your genius wakes up and says, this looks like a job for a genius man. And genius comes through and you do something and it's amazing. And what do you think of the two things someone says whether it's a painting or a story or a poem or whatever, when they get something that's utterly amazing, what do you think of the two things they say to themselves?
It's crap.
No, they know it's great.
Oh, I see.
What do you think they say to themselves?
I'm genius. I'm amazing.
No, that's not what they say.
Okay.
Have you ever had that experience where you did something and you go, oh, fuck?
I thought it just a minute ago. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What do you say to yourself?
I thought I was going to ask a brilliant question, and then I realized that it wasn't.
No, you asked a different question.
Sure.
I wanted you to ask the question, why?
Okay.
That's all.
I'll wait.
I mean, I've done things where I thought it was amazing, and it didn't get that reception, and then vice versa.
But when you knew it was amazing, what was the first thing you said to yourself?
That it's powerful.
Yeah, but, okay.
I mean, you know, I'm sorry. In my elementary world, it's
I'm going to say it,
powerful, but I
I'm going to say it, and you're going to go, oh, of course, you're right.
Okay.
You write something or you do something as an actor maybe in the middle of a scene, and afterwards you go, oh my God, that was amazing. And then you say to yourself, where did that come from?
Oh, okay. Yes, that is happening.
Because you don't know where
Right.
it came from.
Correct.
All the other stuff you did, you know it came from your talent. You know that you know how to do that stuff. But this thing, you go, where did that come from? Then what's the next thing you always say?
How can I do that again?
Exactly.
Oh, yay! I got it right.
How
Okay.
can I do that again?
Right.
And the point is, there is no formula for that. Otherwise, people would be accessing their genius constantly. But they're not. They're usually depending on their talent, which is understandable. That's okay. But talent will only get what's good. Genius will get what's great. But your talent is your biggest obstacle. And when you let go of your talent somehow and are willing to fail because you have no idea what you're doing, sometimes your genius comes to the rescue. And when it does, you do something and it shocks you. And your first thought is, how did I do that? And your second thought is, how can I do it again? Because you want to do it again, but you can't make it happen. You can only be receptive to it happening. You can only be available for it happening. And how do you make yourself available and receptive? By getting rid of your talent. And if you think that's easy, you have another thought coming, because you and your talent are in cahoots. You say to your talent,